All right, so I've pressed
Maybe.
record. I mean, you've got
Okay.
wonderful. What did you call them? Your ears, specifically.
Critter clips, KRITTERKLIPS, which we both love words apparently in the spelling of them. So a woman in San Francisco makes these, and she was selling them at some weird ass woo-woo convention I went to, and I'm like, I love these. So I have over the years now amassed 11 pairs. It's bad. It's
That's
very
not bad.
bad.
That's incredible.
Okay.
It's
Okay, good.
You're being yourself and doing what you want. I mean, you can't see it, but around me, there's just like lots of random things. There's Lego all around me. There's a Harry Potter chessboard made out of Lego next to me. There's a Millennium Falcon. There's plants over there. There's vinyls on the wall. There's comic books around me. Funko Pops. Like I'm all.
Oh my
up for...
God, you have pops. You are everything.
Yeah, I do have a lot.
That's awesome.
I'm kind of a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, you
thing.
are.
Yeah.
No, let's call you a Renaissance man.
That's it. I mean, do Renaissance men have tattoos? I don't think they did. That's probably...
If they don't, they should. Okay, how many do you have?
Well, I got another one on the weekend, so I've got 3 in total.
Awesome.
So I've got 2 on my arm, and one on my ankle is the newest one. That's only small.
What is it?
Okay. I can show you, and the listeners /
Oh.
watchers, if the video holds up and things, then they'll be able to see it.
Right.
But let me take my hoodie off.
And then take your pants off so we can see your ankle?
Well, I don't need to take my pants off for that, or trousers, as we call it here.
Trousers.
It's Star Wars. Well, these are jogging bottoms more than anything. But
you did not get a Star Wars.
I got 2
way.
Star Wars tattoos, actually. So there's that one, which is Darth Vader.
Holy
and
shit, you.
That.
Holy shit.
That one.
Oh my gosh.
So that's going to be a Star Wars sleeve. And then my foot one, I got with a friend of mine who's going over to America, actually. He's been a best friend of mine for a while. God, this is going to be awkward. It's the sound of my chair. Yeah, I know. Get my leg out. It's like burlesque or something, isn't it? So,
okay.
So it's...
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding?
It's a clacker.
Wow. Yeah, I know. I knew what it was the second I saw it. I used to work in the film business.
Yeah.
That's kind of amazing.
And you're one of the first people to see. I haven't even posted on social media yet, so you are.
Wow.
Aside from a couple of people at my work, I think, and my partner Megan, and obviously the tattooist, not many people have seen that. So
I feel very privileged. I just sent you pictures of 2 of mine. The first one is the one I got when I met Mark Humphreys.
That is
it's brilliant. A good policy, I think. And then I just got Justice on my arm in October because of a case we covered where a young girl, it was written in her font. So it's on my forearm just as a reminder of why I do what I do. That's all.
Yeah, because you posted that on your Facebook group, didn't you? I remember seeing that.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain because before we chatted, I was like, I say somewhat Facebook stalked you, but it was on your public Just The Tipsters page. So it's not quite, it was just,
right.
I was like, I haven't gone through, like I realized that I hadn't liked Just The Tipsters on Facebook, and I was like, what have I done?
What's wrong with you?
I
You're
know.
a terrible
person.
person,
terrible podcast host, terrible fan of the show. It's awful. But I went on there and you get so much engagement with your listeners, which is intriguing.
I do.
Yeah.
I have a problem. I'm way too accessible, and I'm a codependent people pleaser. And then I bend over backwards and then wonder why my back hurts. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been there, done that. You know, my codependence. I mean, I've managed to solve that by having a podcast that forces me to talk to a variety of different people. So it's like I
love that.
Like I've described it as like my friends always say, I make my own life more difficult because I'm always busy. I'm always doing something, and it's
right.
like this. I'm quite. Manic is the wrong word because that insinuates bipolar, which is not what I have.
Right.
But it's that sort of high energy. I need to get the craziness out somehow. And the way I do that is having near enough 3 podcasts and doing everything, you know, tattoos, Lego, Star Wars, reading books all the time, staying up ridiculous o'clock at night reading. And then, you know, I'm not even that tired all the time. I feel like I should be because I get less sleep than most. But maybe I'm in that rare 2% of people or 1% who need less sleep.
Yeah, I think that's a gift. I think that's a gift. You're the kind of people that get shit done.
Yeah, well, I try. I try my best, but I don't. I often get distracted by a lot of things. So I've got about 100 notebooks. If you see me writing down, like, because I've got I've got my little notebook here, which is my second genuine Chit-Chat notebook, and then I've got my first genuine Chit-Chat notebook over here, which has got a few spare pages in that I use for guest spots, and then I've got my this notebook, which is my Patreon film notebook, and writing down guests in here, like potential guests that I want to get as well. And in fact, I've got Just The Tipsters written right there, because when I started this year, I wrote down in 2021, with the end of 2021 for the start of 2022, I wrote down all these people that I was like, I need to have them on the show because I keep not doing it. And you've been on my list for ages, thinking
That's nice.
So
that's really nice. I appreciate that. I'm not a great interviewer, which would be one of the reasons I wouldn't have you on, unless of course you've killed someone or solved a murder, and then I would have you on. But I'm like envious of people like you who can talk very extemporaneously, and I can do that if I have bullet points and if it's a case I'm interested in, but I don't feel like I'm a great interviewer. And honestly, most people are not great talkers. At least people, you know what I mean? Like people in the law enforcement world, and oh boy, victims' families. It's sometimes like crawling through molasses to get an interview. Yeah, I'm sure you know. Yeah.
And also one can, like, I'm not saying you would come across this way specifically, but some people can interpret, if you interview people who have gone through things, it can seem like taking advantage of people. And you never want to do that. It's like, hey, you guys have had a horrible tragedy happen to you. Let's put you in front of a camera and a microphone to help my show. Right. It's like, it's not that simple, because I've had people want to speak about difficult times as well as yourself. Yep. And it's not trying to take advantage, but it's kind of allowing people who want to have the right platform for it. And it's
right. It never feels that way. It never feels that way, like speaking to someone like you. And it's only happened a few times where someone has, it's always on social media, some lovely trollish person saying, oh, you're profiting off of people's tragedies. I'm like, well, number one, I'm not profiting. Number two, go fuck yourself sideways. I'm not. And if they don't want to talk to me, they won't. I never, in my mind, at least, humiliate or embarrass anyone. People willingly want to talk. And if there's anything that, and I hate this term, it sounds a little trite, but, people say you're shining light on cases that, need to be talked about. So that's how I kind of rationalize it in my head. And I never want to feel like, I try to be compassionate to victims as well as their families. And I think I do a good job.
Yeah. I mean, I think your podcast, I don't listen to a lot of true crime. Because true crime, and this I want to speak to you about, true crime is not something that I am heavily intrigued by in itself.
Sure.
I've got a friend of mine called Janine Mercer. She has the Odd Entity podcast, and she does like true crime, but as well as like folklore and legends and kind of crazy things like that. And both your podcasts, Just The Tipsters and hers, are the two sort of main true crime podcasts that I consume. And even then, it's like, I know certain individuals, including I think yourself, who consume a huge amount of true crime stuff, and that's completely fine.
Absolutely,
it's completely fine. Like, nothing against people who do, but for me, I mean, once again, I listen to so many different things, and I have to listen to people's podcasts that I have on the show, as well as doing research, and I'm listening to audiobooks all the time as well, and I'm massively into music, so I'm always listening to new music as well. So my partner Megan goes a bit mental, not in a bad way, but she's like, why do you always have to be listening to something? And it's like, because if I'm by myself or doing chores and there's silence, that's a period of time that I can be consuming content, and that's what I need. Always consuming. God bless.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. Yeah, I get you. I mean, yeah, I guess I'm similar, but a lot of what I listen to is either going to be music or true crime or other podcasts that are interesting to me. I don't have a huge wide swath of interest. Like, I'm not listening to sports podcasts or anything like that. But yeah, I'm with you. I never really thought of myself as a big multitasker, but I definitely have to be. I'm definitely an audiophile. I have to be listening to something, while doing something else.
Yeah. I end up just daydreaming, getting lost in things. I'll just, like,
Right.
if it helps me stay on track a lot of the time, occasionally if a guest has been confirmed or something and they email me or message me and go, oh yeah, I can be on the show, blah, blah, blah. As soon as I stop doing whatever I'm doing, even if I'm at work or anything like that, if I'm not having some sort of audio stimulation, then my mind will start to wander, and I'll start thinking about, oh, what questions can I ask about this? Oh, I need to check this bit out, and I'll be like, I need to write this down. Wait a minute, I'm at work.
Right.
I'm meant to be doing not this thing.
Right.
I want to ask with you in podcasting then, how I'm always intrigued by how people first heard of a podcast and how they first sort of got into them. So what was the first podcast you listened to, and what was your podcast origin story?
Well, I love telling this, but it's not comfortable. So I listened to an extraordinarily popular true crime podcast because I've loved true crime and mysteries and solving mysteries and law enforcement and the mentality behind someone who takes someone else's life and thinks they shouldn't have to pay since I was a kid. So I listened to a very popular podcast and thought, well, this is fucking awful. You're getting the victim's name wrong. You're two intelligent human beings, and you're fucking up. You're mispronouncing. I hate you right now. So I was like, I carried that sort of like resentment for like about a year. And I'm an old radio dog. I, have a bachelor's degree in broadcasting from a university in the state where I grew up, and getting a bachelor's degree in radio, TV, film is like getting a bachelor's degree in recess. Like, you can't really do a lot with it, but I worked in radio in the Cincinnati, Ohio area in the US, and I worked in radio in the Los Angeles, California part of the US. And I love radio. I'm much more auditory than visual. You could show me a whole shitload of things and I'm not sure I would grasp it. But auditorily, people have said to me, they're like, you hear things other people don't hear. And I'm like, yes, I do. I'm the bionic woman. Like my mom was in real estate when I was a kid, and she would show me like a plan for a new home that's being built. And she's like, so here's the bedroom and here's the door. And I'm like, that's a box. That's a line on it. I don't know what you're fucking talking about. I couldn't see in 3D. I just, I'm just much more auditory. So listened to the crappy podcast, built up enough resentment, which I think is how a lot of people start. They're like, well, I can do better than that. And I was convinced I could do better than that, even if I didn't have like a team of researchers behind me or some great equipment or, whatever. I knew I wouldn't mispronounce victims' names, and I would get details right that they would be like, it's not important. And I would be like, oh, it's so important. I was like totally offended. So I was lucky enough to be married to my amazing husband, who was a singer-songwriter and also had a small record label with 11 artists. So he had some great ass equipment. It was also a little old, like analog, but it was what he loved. And that's another thing that I think made our podcast sound really good, is that it wasn't tinny or digital. It was warm, like an FM radio station, way before you were born. Way before you were born. There was this thing called S. Because you studied history. But anyway, it's I love what he did. He made it sound like first of all, like a radio show, not a podcast. And that's something I loved. But yeah, we December of 2017, I was like, I'm going to do a true crime podcast, and then promptly forgot. And then my husband had a week off between Christmas and New Year's, and he goes, okay, so the studio's set up. And I'm like, for what? And he's like, for that podcast you're going to do. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. What? No. And he goes, you get your ass in there and you write 3 episodes and we're recording it now. And so I spent a couple days, and on the weekend we recorded 3 episodes, because he did all the research and said, put up 3 at once, and that's how you get started. And here, 4 years later, things, bumps in the road, things have happened, but I'm still trying. And I am so blessed that I have amazing relationships with people in law enforcement. I have victims' families who still keep in touch with me. I have listeners who, it started as a 12-year-old boy dick joke, just the tipsters. And it's turned into something viable. People call in legitimate tips that have actually helped solve cases.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. It started as a vanity project, something I wanted to do, and it's turned into one of the loves of my life.
Yeah, I've always found that when I speak to a lot of people who are podcasters, one of the things that is the least expected part, which is what I found, is the community element, not only from other podcasters, but also from the audience.
Yeah. I was amazed too. You're always going to have, I call it a function of becoming more popular. You're always going to have, weasel dicks who say terrible things, or, you talk too long. Yeah, that was one of my favorites. Like, you talk too much. Um, it's a podcast. I'm not sure how you do a podcast and you don't talk. Shut your fucking pie hole. So, yeah, I mean, you're always going to have those kind of things, but for the most part, the reception and the support is immeasurable. Like, I can't. It's priceless. It's priceless. And people, say things like, you accompany me on my day, you accompany me at work, you accompany me on my commute, you accompany me on my 5-mile run. It's those kind of things that make it feel like you have an even closer relationship with people you've never met.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
being a podcaster kind of helps shine a light on the more positive parts of social media in a lot of ways, as opposed to, like,
You're right.
because I've, everyone's had interactions on social media that suck, but since I've been a podcaster, I've not really had that. I mean, maybe it's because my show isn't quite big enough, and then when it becomes, when it becomes massive, when I become the next Joe Rogan, then I'll get all the shit,
Right. You'll get like half the shit. You won't get all the shit, but it'll be, I'm going to say 60-40. Yeah. The more popular you become, it definitely, people just can't take the fact that you're happy and successful. I don't know what that's about, but yeah.
It's more about them, isn't it? It's one of the things about
absolutely.
The majority of negativity in humans in all manners of life throughout all of history is not the victim is not the problem. It's what the attacker is. There's something wrong with the attacker. Every bully has got their own bully or their own demons, and it's just like the kind of chain, how far up it goes, which is the sort of sad part of it. But with true crime, so, I mean, from when I was younger, I've always had an intrigue into the macabre, into death, into those sort of things. And although true crime hasn't been something that has specifically piqued my interest, serial killers is. I'm very intrigued by that. I took psychology in college. Well, actually, for you guys, I didn't go to university, which is your version of college.
Right.
So I didn't go to that. It's the one below that. So for us, it goes school, secondary school, college, then university. But I think your guys is like high school, like end of high school-ish.
It's high school.
Yeah, but anyway, I was like 16 to 18 years old, 2 years in college, and I took psychology then. I was very intrigued by, Milgram and Freud and lots of the psychologists, but I was like, I want to know about the serial killers. I want to know what is inside someone's brain, kind of, that you alluded to earlier, which is, that makes someone think they can kill someone. And that's incredible, not in a good way, but in a very intriguing way in itself. But then when you get someone who's a serial killer, that's like a whole nother level, because killing one person can often be an in the moment thing, crime of passion. It can be something that's plotted out for revenge. But when you get someone who's a serial killer, that's pathological. So
totally,
it's what about it? I know you kind of touched upon it slightly earlier, but in any more detail of, like, with true crime in itself, has that always been something that was a passion of yours for serial killers, and then it turned into it, like, from a young age up to now? What about it kind of intrigues you the most?
Well, like you, since I was a kid, I always loved the macabre. Halloween, favorite holiday it's not a holiday, but favorite event of the year. I also had a big crush on Bela Lugosi, and I was a big vampire fan as a young person. I was a vampire every year for Halloween. I really like vampires, and I love the idea of, undead, plus the fact, Dracula was a very sexy dude. I was really disappointed.
Vampires are a very sexual being,
Totally. And yet, I mean, you can equate sticking your fangs into someone's neck with stabbing someone with, penetration of the body. It's all the same kind of thing. But yeah, I was really disappointed when I read Dracula, because I was like, Bram Stoker, you need to sex it up a little bit. This is boring shit. It's way too many words. I sound like Salieri talking about Mozart. Way too many notes. Way too many words, Bram Stoker. Way too many. But yeah, I've always loved vampires. So I think I was 12 or 13 when I found an old copy of Helter Skelter for a quarter at a yard sale. And I bought the book, and it had pictures. And even then, what would that have been, like the late 70s, early 80s, I guess it was, they had like some of the pictures had a bar across the victim's face. Some of them were just like an outline of some of the victims. And I was like, oh, what does that look like without, the outline? And so I was fascinated. I was also convinced Charles Manson was going to come to Kentucky where I lived and kill me. Why? I don't know. I'd never done anything wrong to him, but I just assumed it was like, he's on his way and I need to prepare. So I think that was why he'd already been adjudicated and was in prison, but I just, I was like, I just knew it was going to happen. So I was already into the true crime genre as a young person. And then, of course, so many TV shows came out that were fascinating, and the ones that were more of a docuseries that weren't, like a recreation or a dramatization. I was fascinated by what law enforcement went through, what, they became more open about forensics. Forensics files became a big deal. You can, any hotel you're in the United States, it's going to be running hot and cold all day long. You can catch up on many years of forensics files. But I fell in love with that. The fact that a detail like someone leaving a hair or saliva or something like that could eventually, when science caught up, catch them, just like filled my heart. So I, unlike you, not a fan of the serials. Big fan, listen to me, fascinated by someone who, so it was boiled down for me by a pretty interesting detective who said there's 3 reasons people kill: sex, money, and revenge. And I'm like, oh, he's full of shit. There's got to be more reasons. No, there's not. It boils down to sex, money, and revenge. Every crime, every murder, sex, money, or revenge. It's sometimes maybe it's all 3, but it's, the sexually motivated crimes are a little more odd to me because it's a feeling, it's a experience I can't imagine someone enjoying. Also, serials, I think, are so hard to define and figure out. Like you were talking, it's a pathology that people still spend years, trying to figure out. Like, they examined Ted Bundy's brain, thinking, like what you'd said earlier, they say hurt people, right? Like that he had, terrible parents, and there were things in his childhood, not enough to make someone kill, 40 women or whatever. But they examined his brain and there weren't any lesions or issues with the limbic system that needed to be constantly, whatever. I was just like, wow, that's some shit right there. I mean, that's some shitty shit right there. He didn't really have, not that anyone has an excuse, but he didn't have,
an
the things you would look for. Yeah. And then there was that, that theory that was for many years called the McDonald triad, where there are 3 things that can predict a serial killer: bedwetting, fire starting, and animal torture. So I went to bed till I was like 5. I loved fire and would light matches and watch it. I've never hurt an animal, but I literally thought I was 2/3 of a serial killer for a long time. I'm like, oh my God, I have to watch myself as I mature. I don't want to be a serial killer. And I couldn't even, my husband would be like, you take bugs and put them outside. You won't even kill a bug. And I'm like, you're right. Okay, I'm not going to kill anyone. Or yeah. So I'm still pretty fascinated by fire, and I have not wet the bed in a very long time, as far as you know. So.
I mean, I did. I stopped wetting the bed when I was youngish, but then in primary school, so around the age of 8 or 9, I went for a phase of wetting the bed again. That was mainly because I was getting bullied, so I think that's part of the reason. And then when that stopped, I stopped wetting the bed, and I haven't since. Yeah, it is good.
Is Megan there? Because I'd like to confirm that.
I mean, she's not. She's actually in bed, wetting the bed. No, but she's. Well, you mentioned about how it's getting late and things. I'm very much a night owl.
Night owl.
Megan's an early bird. I'm a night owl. So she'll go to bed.
How do you do that? I love that, because I was an early bird and my husband was, I think a lot like you, a 24-hour owl.
Yeah, I can function.
He only needed
anytime.
About 4 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah, I'm not quite there. I'm
right.
I can be at times if it calls for it. Yeah, it's more so that everything is so interesting when I'm awake. You know, sleeping is kind of boring, and although it's necessary, I'm
right.
So Megan normally gets to bed like 9-10ish is ideal for her when she has work in the morning, but she gets up earlier than I do for work. Whereas me, I like 12, Like I'll go to sleep
Right.
12 is like the earliest for me. Like when Megan
Right.
goes to bed at 10, I'm like, cool, I've got the rest of the evening to myself. 2, 3, 4 hours of just reading
Right.
or video games or anything. But
Right.
it works well. I can get up
Sure.
early, but yeah, it's there was a point I was going to make here to the early bird sleeping thing, but I've got completely. Oh, it's because we're talking about wet in the bed and serial killer. So fire, there we go.
Right.
I knew I was getting at some point. I think with fire though is like, I mean, starting fires is fun, not destroying people's property and livelihood or killing anyone, but like fire is such a, I think it's one of the most core things about being a person is enjoying fire, because I think one of the earliest traits of humanity that turned them into the modern day human, was cooking food, eating cooked meat, and then the amount of nutrition and things.
Heating your dwelling.
Water. Oh yeah, of course, yeah, the caves and things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
comfort. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think. I mean, I've never been big into hurting animals. I've always. I'd sooner hurt a person than an animal. Easy, I could punch a person in the face. If you tell me to kick a dog,
They
I'll
probably
cry.
deserved it.
Yeah,
right.
You could excuse a reason
because a human probably deserved it. Yeah.
You could always think of a reason for a human to deserve like a nut punch, but you can't think of a reason a dog would. That's horrible.
No, I would never kick a dog in the nuts, and hopefully they've been, spayed or neutered. But anyway, yeah.
So I want to ask, with true crime, I've noticed that although I want to clarify to any listeners, if before anyone potentially gets upset, this is not right. I'm just gonna say there's a common thread that a lot of the demographic of individuals who enjoy true crime, it seems to be primarily women. Now, obviously, there are lots of men who like true crime and things.
Right.
However, just from the amount of podcasts that have got women at the helm, the amount of interaction on social media that I've only seen a narrow amount, but it seems like there is more engagement with women. And I've heard a lot of women sort of explain their theory as to why that is. I didn't know if you had a theory, and I want to clarify to listeners, I'm not saying only women listen to true crime. It just seems like a demographically skewed thing. And I didn't know if you had a theory or a thought as to why that might be.
I think my theory is the same as most people's theory, is that women are mostly the victims. That's, it's, I don't know how the percentages break down. I end up covering as many cases about men that are the victims. Well, maybe not as many, but it's definitely more of an even thing than people think. But I'm going to say this. I think it's kind of a two-part answer. I think women are mostly the victims. I also think that women's cases get put into the media a lot more than men's. And that's something I try to work on, because some of the cases I've covered, I call it the blonde white woman syndrome, which, I'm blonde and white, but I'm old, so it doesn't matter. If I were a young, beautiful blonde white woman and I went missing, you'd fucking hear about it where you are. If you're a 50-year-old white guy who lives a happy life and no one knows what happened to you, go fuck yourself. Nobody's looking for you. I mean, case in point, one of the cases that made me start this podcast, a local man, 58-year-old man, went missing from his home, and they told his wife that maybe he had gone to Costa Rica.
That's oddly specific.
He's happily married. Oddly specific and shitty and dismissive.
Oh, it's horrible shit. But the thing I was like, why? Yeah. Of all things, Costa Rica, not just he left you and went somewhere. Right. Let's specifically tell you we think he went here.
Yeah, maybe he's in Costa Rica. Was the lead detective's exact quote to the wife. And then there was blood found behind his easy chair, and his nephew is a pile of shit. And 3.5 years later, we got him arrested and indicted, and we're in the middle of it now. But yeah, that's the thing. I was like, how can they not be looking for him? I mean, I was just like stunned. Why aren't we looking for everyone? Yeah. And granted, there's a lot of missing persons where someone walks away from their own life. It is not a crime as an adult to walk away from your life. If you're a child, it's different. If you're underage, it's different. But if you're an 18-year-old to 77-year-old white guy, tough shit, buddy. You're on your own. It's terrible. So that's, I know that's a long answer, but I do think that women, and it's almost like, we were talking about, dogs being descended from wolves, women descended from women. We are sort of brought up to keep our hackles raised and be aware of our surroundings, and, not to not trust people, but, there's been a lot of cases where someone thought someone was being kind to them, and it turned out to be very opposite. So I think women consume true crime in a larger percentage than men. But I will tell you, I'm thrilled to death when I get an email, a message on any social media from a dude who says they listen. And this is, again, a little bit of a disparity. Dudes typically find dudes hosting true crime more palatable. So when a dude doesn't care that I have a vagina and I like, and I'm pretty good storyteller about true crime, it makes me feel like the world is hopefully shifting, because you can't imagine the number of comments people get. It's like, hi, I'd like you to recommend some true crime podcasts for me, but I don't like women's voices.
Right.
It happens a lot. I
would think it's the opposite. That's quite bizarre. For me, I mean, I've always been, I don't know. I mean, I always like strong women anyway. That's like my Achilles heel, I would say. You know, if it's strong women,
your parents did good. Your parents did good then.
Yeah, one hopes. But it's in a variety of ways. You know, be it, you know, Gwendolyn Christie, who Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones, for people who aren't aware, like a woman like that, like an Amazonian woman, or an actually woman in power, be it real or not, any kind of sense of that. So whenever it's a woman narrating or reading things, I find that more interesting most of the time than men. But also, I have to hear my stupid voice all the time, so it's like it's refreshing to hear someone else nattering on rather than it being me all the time.
Anyone who hosts a podcast gets tired of hearing their own voice, but I am happy with either. I honestly don't have a preference. I love true crime podcasts narrated by men and true crime podcasts hosted and narrated by women. I love them both.
Yeah. I mean, I will clarify, if people saw my podcasting library, I think it is actually slightly skewed towards men, but that is not because I like hearing them more. It's more just whatever the content is, regardless of the person's anything.
Subject matter.
It's just content is content, and just, you know, if the quality is okay and if they speak in the right way. As long as those two parameters are met, then I don't really care who it is speaking and those sort of things. But the theory that I heard about true crime is, and I don't know how true this is, and I can't speak because I'm, you know, in the privilege scale, I'm pretty high up when it comes to being, you know, a white millennial living in England who's not ridiculously low down on the poverty scale. So, you know, my perspective is always one of the things I want to hear other people's perspectives on. But with true crime, I heard one of the theories was something along the lines of like women getting the power back in some way, you know, hearing about sort of, I know you say that it's not always sort of women who are the victims, but I think, as you say, because the media potentially shines a light on that, or because of women's history or whatever the contributing factors may be, is that women often like to hear about these things because it's, as you say, the sort of awareness of it. You know, it's kind of, it gives them power back hearing about these kind of circumstances happening, whereas men are like, I don't like, men don't, I think this isn't now an assumption, but I wonder if women more frequently are worried about, you know, violence, obviously sexual assault, and also murder more frequently than men are. So if you hear about it more frequently, I wonder if that's a degree of comfort covering over the existential worry of that kind of thing.
That's a great theory. Yeah, it's like if your senses are satiated with stories of this, you know, that's an interesting theory. I always thought it was because, you know, women were more often the victims than men, but that's actually a great theory. The more you hear about something, the more comforting it becomes because you're not afraid of it anymore, even if the stories are horrific. And that, to that degree, I will tell you, I have evolved, because when I started the podcast, I never wanted to cover a case that was open, that was unsolved, and I never wanted to cover a missing person. Just couldn't handle it. Everything had to be wrapped up with a beautiful bow and like a Tiffany box. I wanted every, you know, T crossed, every I dotted. I wanted it solved. And for the first year, I would only do solved cases because that gave me comfort. Like, okay, someone got caught, someone got indicted, someone was arrested, they're off the street, that person got whatever that form of justice is. In my mind, there's no closure if someone loses a family member, but you can hope for some modicum of justice. And that almost has to be personal to you, whatever justice means to you, whether it's someone put to death, the death penalty, or spend the rest of their life in prison, or something like that. But yeah, so after about a year, I started getting emails. Hey, would you cover this missing person? Or this person's case is close to me, my family, or a friend. I know that this happened. It's an unsolved case. Could you please cover it? And I would be like, oh no. So I would do one a month. And then it just did not take long before it was 6 out of 8 would be unsolved cases. And this is terrible to say this, but it's the only way I can voice it, because it's the truth. I occasionally do a solved case as a palate cleanser for myself, because I can't. I sit up at night. Unlike you, I can't get by on a small amount of sleep. I need a bunch. I don't get it. I don't usually get it. So I'm up at night like, oh, wait a minute. What about that? I'm constantly reading, looking, consuming, theorizing, writing down notes, like I could fucking, solve anything. But yeah, believe me, these things occupy my brain way too often. So occasionally I'm like, I have to do one that's solved. I can't take it anymore. So that's how it kind of is going now.
I mean, that's part. I'm in the same boat as that. That's one of the reasons I don't listen to a huge amount of true crime and missing persons thing, where it's like, yeah, it's like there's a minor spoiler for the film Zodiac. So I love David Fincher. Okay, I love.
Oh my gosh,
his filmmaking style is incredible. So I watched Seven, and then Fight Club is one of my favorite films ever. His the American version of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is amazing, and there's so many films he's done. And when I was really into Fincher, I think when I kind of discovered Fight Club, as most people do in their teenage years, it's like
right, of course.
The famous college poster, and everyone knows about you don't talk about Fight Club. And so I got really into Fincher, and then I need to remind you, there's a video on YouTube by the Nerd Writer about how David Fincher, his cinematography works. I'd never seen it before. A friend of mine showed it to me. It's incredible. I'll have to send it to you.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I can't wait.
Completely changed my perception on him, even though I loved him anyway. But with Zodiac, I watched that when I was in the midst of my Fincher fest, and I was like, yes, right, this is one of the only films of his I haven't seen, and I was like, I can't wait. And then I watched Zodiac, and I got to the end, and I didn't know anything about the Zodiac Killer. Over here, it's not spoken about that much. Obviously, over in America, it's much of a bigger thing. And so I watched the film, and then it ends, and obviously, they don't get the killer. There's very huge hints of who it is, and it's almost confirmed who it is, but you don't get that, and that isn't the point of the story. But when I finished that, I was like, wait, what? And it ended. I was like, I just spent 2.5 hours watching this film and it's not even solved. I was like, I feel robbed. It kind of pissed me off a little bit. And I was like, obviously, he can't formulate. The point of the film is kind of true to life. So it was like, but that thing really bothered me. So I think with the missing persons thing, it's that closure. It's like reading a book and then someone's ripped out the last 3 pages and you're like, I need the full stop. I can't. You can't finish on a comma. What's wrong with you?
Exactly.
So yeah,
exactly. And, Will Sarzan, the man that went missing in my, area here, I do not like the out of doors. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not an outdoorsy kind of girl. And I volunteered for 3 months to look with a group of searchers who were wonderfully trained and helped train me. And I learned so much about a missing person, what to look for, what not to look for, what to, carrying a piece of PVC pipe to push, shrubs to the side. Also, in case you run into a snake, stuff like that. I mean, it was fascinating. I had no idea. I assumed if I found bones, which I found a lot of, not human, they would be white and look like, Fred Flintstone, like something from Bedrock. And the body has so much, soft tissue that a bone looks a lot like a stick. A human bone looks brown because it's had, things seep into it. So it was fascinating. I found more goat femurs than I would be like, look what I found. They're like, put the goat femur down, Melissa. Just put the fucking goat femur down. So yeah, apparently Southern California was overrun with goats at some point. I don't know why, but I found a shitload of goat femurs. But yeah, it was very enlightening and fascinating, figuring out a grid, a way to walk so that we didn't miss anything. It was, it was a very fascinating experience for me, and I learned a lot. And a missing persons just tripped me up. I mean, I sit up at night thinking, where have we not looked? Where can we double time look? Where can, so yeah, unsolved cases, the same thing. And I'm very blessed. I have some amazing listeners and some great people in my life who care enough to message me and ask my opinion and tell me things. And I have this theory that a lot of people are armchair detectives. They really, want to figure out a puzzle. They want to solve something and bring, peace or resolution to someone's family, or, it's an interesting world being a human sometimes.
Yeah, being a human is so weird. All the weirdest things. I mean, it's like
it's a fascinating journey.
Yeah, it is. But I always think like linking. They said it in Dogma, the Kevin Smith movie, and it's like,
right.
Sex is the prime example I use for how weird people are. It cracks me up. Like, not during it's a very fun and somewhat serious endeavor, but you think about it in retrospect, it's like the things people say, the things that you like, even the smells or whatever else that you enjoy, and then when you're out of that frame of mind. And you look back and you're like, fucking hell. Like, it's so weird.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah.
That's just one of the examples I use about,
right.
It's just how weird it is being a person, of just all these weird little quirks and things. And I just imagine, like, I don't believe in God, but it's one of those ideas that, and once again, this came from Dogma, is like, of course there's a God. Have you seen Sex? How funny is that? And it's like, that's a really, as Alan Rickman says it, and it's like, that's a very funny idea of it. But I want to ask, still sticking with the true crime and missing persons element, something that comes up, I think it came up maybe in the first, because I went back and obviously listened to the first podcast you did to compare it to the more recent ones, and I'll clarify, all of your first podcasts are still bangers. So, anyone who hasn't listened to Just The Tipsters, you can go back and listen to the start all the way through, consistently amazing. But
thank you.
Police and law enforcement involvement is something that's come up quite a lot, both in your show, but also true crime in general. And it's the question I have is sort of two-pronged, which is, do you think in general law enforcement do enough? And on this, coming off that element, is that, do you think that the not even renaissance, the golden age almost of true crime over the last couple of decades, of the accessibility in the podcasting realm, has that helped law enforcement kind of like a fire up their ass to be like, lots of people are going to be paying attention to this, you kind of need to get your finger out? That's kind of my query to you, of like, are law enforcement doing enough, and do you think true crime has affected that in any way?
That is a great question. I love how much research, time, and effort you put into talking about the topics on your podcast. So yes, and yes, although I'm not sure it's two questions, but law enforcement, I have a soft spot. I'm going to say 95% of anyone who's taken the vow to serve and protect are good people. Are there shitty cops? Oh, fuck yes. Are there shitty plumbers? Yes. Are there shitty doctors? Yes. Yeah. Usually plumbers aren't going to be responsible for your life. They can make your life hell, but a doctor and a cop should be held to a higher standard. Most of them that I've met are good people. You're always going to have a clinker, because it's on the human scale, right? I have a huge soft spot for those in law enforcement. It's life shortening. They a lot of them I know have health issues at a younger age than they would, because they don't process a lot of what they see or go through. They work tirelessly. They don't sleep a lot. Do they let things fall through the cracks? Yes, they're human beings. Has true crime helped them? Yes, it has. It has probably also been a burr in their saddle for some of them. But I will be very honest with you. I, started this doing only solved cases, and I was sort of bound by what I could find via research. And then when I decided to dig deeper, it's not even a rabbit hole. It's basically me digging to China. It became obsessive and a thing I loved. And the biggest amount of pushback I ever got is from smaller agencies. Larger agencies are like, fuck yes, I'll talk to you. How can you help me? Can you say this? Can we do this? How about this? Are you busy Thursday? Smaller agencies are like, well, when I need you to talk to Cheryl down in records, and I'm like, so it's literally one or the other. It's black or white. It's never gray. They're either, here is every file we have. You look at it. Maybe you have a better idea, and I'm like, I'm nothing. And I've been given a couple of very kind gifts from those in law enforcement. They're called challenge coins. I guess they were a thing like with the military. A couple of really beautiful challenge coins. And the last one I got was in December of 2021. And the cold case detective said, here, I wanted to give you this. This is celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Homicide Bureau being around. And it's the LA County Sheriff's Department Homicide Bureau, which is the largest homicide bureau in the United States. And I was like, well, this is really nice. He goes, yeah, you've helped solve a couple cases. And I go, no, I have not. You solved cases. I'm the big mouth bitch with the microphone. And he was like, you shined a light on cases and made people in law enforcement pay attention, including myself. And then I just sat there and cried. So, I know I haven't done anything to solve a case. Have I been blessed to have people in law enforcement call me and say, would you cover this case? I need to get the word out. That is like a true gift, a priceless gift. I've had one detective say, you know more about this case than I do. And I'm like, that is bullshit. I only know what you've told me. And he's like, you remember everything though. And I'm like, well, that's a problem. Yes, I do. I don't forget the details, but yeah. So, I mean, I do think true crime is a big help. I mean, I will be honest, it makes me very angry when people say that podcast solved that crime. No, it did not. It may have lit a fire under the ass of those in law enforcement. It may have brought a cold case back to their attention they needed to look at, but they fucking did the work. Podcasts are amazing and wonderful, and they are entertainment. It doesn't matter the topic. It's entertainment. It's for, it's something for our ear holes. I'm a podcast fan like you're a podcast fan, like millions of people are. When I started in 2018, there were 400,000 podcasts. Now there's over 2 million. You could find a podcast concerning the little finger on your right hand. I mean, that's the whole point of a podcast. It's niche. It's niche entertainment for what your interest is. So yeah, I do think true crime has helped, law enforcement for sure, if they're willing to be open and let them in. That's how I think of it. And I'm really blessed that I've had some people open to whatever they take. I mean, detectives a lot of time in the United States work Monday through Friday. They take their Saturdays or Sundays when they could be with their family, with their little precious time off, to talk to me because the case is so important to them. I mean, that's not because they want to be, behind a microphone or they're vain. They usually can't stand to be in front of cameras. And most of them are not good at it. But they're just not. It's not what they thought part of the job was going to be. But if they are well-spoken and want to present a case, I am so happy that they trust me enough to do that. And I've just never had anyone be like, you fucked up. You did this. You let something out you shouldn't have. I've used a couple of surreptitious names for some detectives who didn't want their names used. But other than that, I'm just, knock wood, I'm really blessed to have a great relationship with law enforcement across the country.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that law enforcement and individuals in the emergency services, as well as doctors and nurses, those jobs are the hardest jobs on the planet by a country mile. Like, you've got, even the hardest programming job or most stressful salesman job, you've got nothing on, doctors, nurses, firefighters, paramedics, ambulance, and obviously people in law enforcement. It's a whole other ball game. The perception of humanity in those roles is intense. And although I believe mainly across the world, there are elements of law enforcement that could do better. The fact that,
absolutely,
there's so much that there is obviously an air of improvement, but the stress of that job is just unfathomable. And I wouldn't,
absolutely,
I couldn't do that job because I think like you in a lot of ways, I can be very obsessive over things. And like what I like about my job, I just work in insurance. I work for a broker. I deal with claims. So we have businesses that are our clients. They send me claim information. I work out who's at fault. I figure out the admin details. I do a lot of motor claims and stuff. So I have to look at road markings and etc. And it's like, that's quite low pressure because the worst thing that happens is the business that I'm doing it for. If I fuck everything up, the business just they have to pay a little bit more money in their insurance premium. Like, that's generally speaking the worst case scenario if I really mess things up. Whereas, if you mess up law enforcement or a doctor or anything, you not only can potentially ruin or end someone's life, but the ripple effects of that can be endless. It's
absolutely
phenomenal. And if I had the job I've got now, when it gets to 5:00 and I sign off and stuff, it's gone. I don't even think about it. I get home, I start podcasting, doing Star Wars stuff, whatever. I don't think about those things. And I'm always thinking about podcasting even when I'm at work, because it's something I'm passionate about. But if I had to do if I found out someone's little girl got murdered, or God forbid, like raped or anything like that, just knowing that exists is enough to really get me to my core. Having to investigate that and it be on my shoulders to potentially give this family some degree of closure, or worrying that whoever did this is still out there and others could suffer from that. Like, that in one instance is enough to drive anyone mad. Doing that on the daily for your career, for oh, I've solved this one, well, here's another one. It's like, it's unfathomable. I hugely respect people in law enforcement and any of those emergency services, because it's just, I couldn't do that. Or if I do it, it
would
with you. Consume me.
Right. I am with you. It takes a very special person to be a first responder, which is what we call them in the U.S. First responders. It kind of fits an umbrella over all of that. But I am totally with you. It takes a very special person. And then, like I said, I know it has been taxing, but it is the people that I think do the best at what they do are probably like you and maybe me. They are obsessed. Mm-hmm. Most detectives retire and can't take it and go back and then work on cold cases.
Yeah.
I mean, and they get hired back as, like a contractor, because they're retired, they're getting their pension, and they give them like, oh, that's my girl dog. Should I go get her?
You can go get the dog. That's not a problem at all.
Guess what her name is? Siren.
Oh.
And not because she's luring sailors to the rocks. It's because she's a loudmouth bitch. So let me go get her.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine.
I'm sorry. You're so funny. Okay, you've had enough outside. I get it. Oh, goodness sake. Stop it. No. Stop it, you crazy bitch. Stop that right now.
That was amazing.
She's the best. She's a terrible, terrible, awful dog. This is a pretty interesting thing. Ah, bitch. No. You can tell how much she pays attention to everything. She was found in a field in Northern California, and she was pulled out of a shelter by a organization called Paws for Life, PAWS, and they train inmates to train dogs. So she spent 6 weeks in prison with an inmate, and he was responsible for her care, her feeding, her grooming, and training her. So, my husband and I had lost 2 dogs in 4 months in 2020. And I was like, we're never going to find me, and it took, actually in 2019, and it took about 10 months to find her. I kept looking at shelters, and then we wandered into a pet store, and they were having an adoption fair, and they were like, we saw her picture and we both fell in love with her, and they were like, oh, she's on her way down here. And I'm like, from where? And they're like, Northern California. And I'm like, aren't there enough dogs in Southern California? Why do we have to get, is she fancy? Is she from San Francisco? What the fuck? But she was found in a field, and, they bring her out, and she just runs to us. And I'm like, she's mine. And she's a fucking asshole. And she's a fucking asshole. And they're like, her name is Siren. And I'm like, oh my God, like Greek mythology. And they're like, well, no. So it took about a week, and we had her here, and I left to go run an errand. And my husband, she didn't know my husband was here. He was in his office, and I came home, and his face is like this, and his eyes are really big. I'm like, what's going on? He goes, I understand Siren now. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you left, and 5 minutes later, she sat on the steps going, woo! Like the extended dance mix version of a fucking police siren. So That's my girl.
That's amazing. I mean, I don't actually have a dog at the moment. We've got a little tortoise, which is the polar opposite of your dog. Very slow and chilled out. Her name is Wicket. In fact, I haven't got a...
Of course
she's sleeping, but you can see there's our picture there. There she is in a little...
Oh my gosh, it's your little holiday outfits. I love her even more because I dress Siren in sweater. Oh, there might be a delivery coming. Hold on a minute. Siren! Oh, her name is Siren Marie Bitchface Morgan Humphreys. Anyway, there you go.
That's amazing. But like we've got you should, I mean, dogs are incredible. You know, we are too lucky to have dogs, and like I've had, when I was younger, I had rabbits and cats because my mum is a cat person and my dad wasn't fussed about having animals. And he wasn't one of the dads who was like not fussed and then fell in love. He was like, no, I'm not fussed. And then we got them. He's like, yeah, I still don't care. So okay, cool, soulless. But I like Megan has never had any pets. We're cat, well, apart from like a fish, but like that's more of, I call that almost like a living screensaver. Just like
it is a little bit, yeah.
It's just like, hey, look at my cool aquarium. It's like, cool. You own fish.
I don't like aquarium. No. Yeah, I don't like that at all. But a turtle, yeah,
they're amazing and they have such personality. And you call her name and she'll come to you. I love her. But yeah, she's adorable and she's got a personality. And my mum's got her. Well, I say we call her because we thought she was a girl. We've seen her penis. It's scary. So she's not a girl, but we call her a girl. So whatever. World's first non-binary tortoise. Whatever. But
God, you've seen your mom's turtle's penis.
Well, I've seen our tortoise's penis, but our mum's tortoise is a sibling. Too? Is a sibling.
Oh, okay. All right.
So my mum's tortoise is called Humphrey. Our tortoise is called Wicket. But our tortoise is a boy, and we think Humphrey's a girl. So we got the genders completely wrong. But
this is perfection.
When you get the two tortoises together, they are completely different personalities. We wanted to get Wicket because she is a hungry girl, and both myself and Megan love food. And so she was, when we got her, my aunt and uncle have tortoises, and then they had babies, and they had like a whole bunch of them. Like 19 was the first batch, which is insane.
Oh my goodness, that is.
They've had 3 batches now. And they sell them for like 100 quid each. So it's
holy crap. Okay.
Yeah. It's a good business model. You know, somehow make tortoises breed, which is a very difficult thing to do.
Turtle pimps. Your aunt and uncle are turtle pimps. What the fuck is this? This is terrible.
It's insane. But like this, when we went to choose our tortoise, we saw there was I think 7 of them left, and my auntie put down a head of lettuce, and all the tortoises looked at it and didn't care. My tortoise, Wicket, looked at it and sprinted straight for it, and we're like, we want that one. And
that's your baby.
Yep, that's it. And so the reason I'm talking about these elements is because like Megan's obsessed with dogs. You know, because we're currently living in a flat and then we're saving up and we've had the orders and the offer's been accepted, the work's been done. Hopefully in the next 2 months we're gonna have a house, which is gonna be delightful.
God, congratulations.
Thank you. It's it's
a huge life goal to get to. That's amazing, and you're so young.
I mean, it's taken a long time and a lot of saving, but we finally seemingly got there and stuff. And we're gonna do the house a bit. It's got a carpet in the bathroom, which is insanity.
Who does that? Yeah, that's
insane. People. It's just a piss sponge.
That's from a serial killer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, piss sponge. That's a serial killer piss sponge. Yeah,
disgusting. But when we get this house and we've done it up and a few things there, then the next thing we're doing is getting a dog, and it's just like Megan has legitimately like teared up just thinking about how happy she is. She's going to be getting a dog, and like I'm super excited as well because I love animals and things, and my family members and things have had dogs, but it's just like I can't be too excited.
Yeah.
I can't be too excited because Megan's so excited, so I have to kind of rein her in a bit to be like, we still have a few months to go. There's still many steps before we get the dog, but it's like I'm so excited to have a little ball of energy. So I am envious of you to have a Siren.
Oh gosh, fucking asshole. She's the best total fucking asshole. But she's like, the love of my life. You are like my husband was, and I am like Megan was, and we had 2 dogs. And I was like, don't you think? Well, we had 1 dog, and I was like, don't you think he needs a friend? And he's like, not really. But then I get the girl dog, and I'm like, and the boy dog was like, why did you do this to me? You ruined my life. But they were together for 12 years, and then they both passed away in the beginning of 2019. And I was like, before they passed away, I'm like, don't you think we need another dog? And my husband's like, look, there's 2 of us and 2 of them. You get another one and they're a pack and they will overtake us. I'm like, they're 35 and 60 pounds. They don't even add up to what one of us weighs. They're not going to overtake us, but he would not let me have a third. So
Yeah, Megan wants
I'm
two
okay with
tortoises as
that.
well. And then immediately I'm just like, we don't need two. We've got space for one. And we're going to get the other one eventually, no doubt, because they live
But
for...
don't you think Wicket needs a friend?
Megan says
I'm
that
with
all the
Megan.
time.
Yeah, Wicket needs a friend.
Yeah, I can't let you ever talk to Megan because you'll convince her. She legitimately times said, I almost went to like a pet store and just came home with the tortoise, and then you wouldn't be able to tell me I couldn't have it.
What are you gonna do? Say
I'm
no?
not that heartless.
Fuck you, buddy.
I agree.
No,
I agree.
you're outvoted.
Yeah.
Totally outvoted. If Megan ever needs like backup, just tell her to call me. I am here for her because Wicket needs a friend. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, our friend's going to be the dog. I mean, not really, because you have to really be very careful with dogs and tortoises, because a dog will be like, "Why is that rock moving? I'm going to kill it." It's like, no, calm down.
That's right. I'm gonna lick its legs until it's my back. Yeah, exactly.
So I want to speak with you about something we've touched upon and alluded to, and it is a bit of a change of conversation, but it is something that you said you are willing to speak about, and it is something that's very important, obviously in life in general, but it's something that has happened to you recently, and you are very open about it on your podcast, and it's about Mark. So I wondered if you would, in as little or as much detail as you're willing to give, talk about Mark, basically, in all aspects of him, and what recently happened with him.
Yeah. We met, and we were not each other's types. He liked earth mothers who wore tie-dye and had long hair, and I liked bad boys who hated women. So that was, we were just not, but sometimes there's a larger force at work, and we met, and 3 years later we ran back into each other. And he had grown really long hair and a ponytail. And, I was never going to be an earth mother. But anyway, we, clicked, and we dated for a few years and got married in 2001. We got married 3 weeks after 9/11. And that was fun. But we made it work. And we were married almost 20 years, 3 weeks shy of 20 years. And he passed away suddenly in September of 21, sitting in his car in our driveway. And honestly, if you have to pick a way for someone you love to go, either in their sleep or something that happened to him, that's not such a bad way to go. Terribly traumatic for me to find him, but I've been very blessed to have medical people in the medical field tell me that he didn't suffer. It was, I guess, the official cause of death was asymptomatic left ventricle dysfunction. So he was 64, and he went quickly. Thank God. Sometimes I guess it's referred to as the widowmaker heart attack, but he didn't. He was sitting in his car that he loved very much in our driveway, and his left foot was out on the driveway, and his hand was on his hands were both on his thighs. He wasn't like, his phone, was attached to his hand, and it wasn't like his phone was out and he dialed 911. It wasn't like he was in the midst of a crisis. It looked like he went to sleep, and I was trained in life-saving CPR and first aid, and I attempted that after I dialed 911, and they amazing talking about first responders, amazing paramedics showed up and worked on him for 20 or 25 minutes. He was already gone when I found him, but God bless them. I guess that's what they have to do when they get on a call. They have to, so they worked on him for a while, and finally they said, we're going to have to call it. And I said, I know, I don't even know why you're still pounding on him. They like 6 of them kept rotating, CPR, but they hooked him up to an IV, and they cut his clothes off, and, it was a lot they did, and he was already gone. So that was, I lost my mom in 1992. I had a little bit of mourning, and I'm an only child of an only child. She was my best friend. So I had a little bit of mourning, and there's, no good way to lose someone, right? It's whether you have warning or whether you are like this, there's no good way to lose them. But I couldn't have asked for anything better for him. I didn't have to make a decision. He wasn't hooked up to a machine. He didn't lose his mental, faculties, which I have to tell you, I'm even more in love with you now, knowing you work for an insurance company. Mark Humphreys was a risk manager. And his day job was a risk manager for a developer. So he placed all the insurance for the companies, all the insurance for the principals of the companies, like for their homes, their cars, all of that. That was like something he did as part of his job because he loved what he did. But yeah, he it's funny. His coworker, the general counsel for the company, said, "I was surprised when I went in after he passed away. He went into Mark's office to sit there to help kind of write an obituary, and he said, like what would Mark say?" And he looked up and he found like actuary tables that are framed, for like insurance, and then, the Dodgers. And he also had this, record label with 11 artists. So some music posters framed. It was all of his life, around him, but insurance was one of those big things. So the thing that is breaking my heart right now more than anything is I wish he could have met you, because he would have loved you. And, your aunt and uncle, or your parents, turtle Humphrey, his last name was Humphreys.
Oh.
Yeah, but spelled the Welsh way, R-E-Y-S, not R-E-I-S.
The Humphrey, so, the other choice is E-Y.
Oh, yeah. So that's Welsh. R-E-I-S is British. R-E-Y is Welsh. So we found out after dating for a short period of time, we were both Welsh. And he was half Sicilian, half Welsh. And my big joke was that he was Sicilian from the waist down. And he would get really embarrassed and be like, "Okay, that's enough." But I had many people, mostly women, who would giggle really hard when they would say, "Oh, because Mark's mother is tiny little Sicilian woman and his dad was, Welsh dude." So he was literally half and half. Wow. For Christmas, he, and I will just tell you the truth, I grew up in the Cincinnati area, Cincinnati, Ohio, that is so German. And my last name is Morgan. I thought I was German, but the German spelling is M-O-R-G-E-N, which means morning. M-O-R-G-A-N is the third most popular name in Wales. Smith Jones Morgan, like the Morgan horse. I mean, I'm fucking Welsh. I had no idea. So a couple years ago, I had no idea. I thought it was German. My whole life, I thought it was German. So as a sweet gift, when DNA websites that were, sort of open use became really popular, like solving the Golden State Killer, his fourth cousin twice removed, whatever. That was pretty amazing. My sweet husband got me a 23andMe DNA kit. And oh my God, Mike, I was so excited. I was like, please God, let me be Visigoth or something really fucking exotic. No, I am 94.7% Northern European, 89.4% UK. I am basically probably your cousin. It's terrible. I am the most boring white woman on earth. I have nothing. I am translucent, see-through.
I'm not sure about that, but it's funny you say Mark being Sicilian, because Megan is half Italian. So weird.
I'll be damned.
So Welsh and Sicilian and UK or English and Italian. It's like neighboring. That's quite bizarre.
Yeah.
Lots of very
don't
interesting
Megan
parallels.
though, because if you're Italian, you look down on Sicilians.
Well, her cousin, who's Italian,
see...
got married in Sicily, so I think there may be.
Oh,
so but then most of Megan's family
up.
They're northern Italy. I call them the mountain folk. They're probably the only. They're whitest Italians in the world. They're the only Italians that are whiter than English people. So
absolutely,
in the mountains.
They're see-through. Yeah, northern Italian. They're basically translucent. The Sicilians are the darker, ruddy skin and the dark eyes. So do you remember that scene in True Romance where Dennis Hopper is going to be taken out by Christopher Walken? And to get it over faster?
I love Tarantino stuff, but True Romance is a film I saw so long ago that I've got it on my rewatch list, but I cannot remember that scene.
You do, because it's, you do need to see. It's an incredible, mob kind of movie. I mean, Brad Pitt is that stoner sitting on the couch with James Gandolfini smiling and questioning him is a magnificent scene. But Dennis Hopper is a security guard, and he is oh my God, the lead, I can't think of his name. Oh my God. Yeah, not the Brat Pack guy. He was Patricia Arquette's boyfriend. I can't think of his name now. Oh, Christian Slater. Right. So he's Christian Slater's dad, and he knows he's going to be killed by Christopher Walken because he knows where his son is and he won't give it up. So to get it over quickly, he says something he knows will offend Christopher Walken, which he's like, "You're Sicilian, right?" And he's like, "Yeah. Yeah. your people were conquered by the Moors. And Christopher Walken's like, this guy, and he's got a gun. And he starts to say, your grandmother was, probably made love to people of African descent, not in those nice words. And then Christopher Walken shoots him. So, yeah, I used to say that to Mark all the time. I'm like, your people were conquered by the Moors. I just want to mention that. So.
It's one of those things. Like, I really appreciate you sharing, information about Mark, and obviously on your podcast, you released the episode which was your apology, and I listen to bits and pieces of your podcast here and there, depending on how busy my listening is.
Time.
I saw that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If I could, I would not have a job. I would just be podcasting all the time, listening to podcasts,
exactly.
talking to people.
Exactly.
But I've also recently got Audible, so I've been listening to loads of Star Wars audiobooks as well. Of
course. Perfect.
I specifically saw that, and I was like, Melissa's apology. I was like, what could she be apologizing about? It's you're very much you're comfortable in your own skin, and you are unashamedly you, which is one of the things I hugely appreciate about you as an individual. And so I was like, oh, and so I listened to it, and it was obviously, you speak about Mark, and it was very solemn, and it was very important and very emotional for obviously you, especially. You could hear it, but not only the subject matter about how you said it, but also just to listen to. And from there, it was one of those things in me, because as I said, like, I had you listed as a guest I wanted since we first connected. And then when I heard that, I was like, I need to reach out, even if it's not to have you as a guest, just to speak with you and to make sure that no one's ever really okay when someone passes. It doesn't get better. It just gets easier to cope with.
Right.
So, I want to reach out with you with that, but the fact that you were so open and honest to your audience is something that I massively respect, because, I've said it on my podcast before and things where it's like, my dad passed away when I was 19, and that's something I've been very open about on the show because it's an anchor point in my life. It's made me who I am now.
Absolutely. Right.
And, and obviously everyone at some point, hopefully in little amounts, does experience people passing away. And obviously when it comes to a family member, especially one who's older than you, the unfortunate part of being a person is that hopefully, if life goes to plan, you will see your parents die. It sucks ass, but it's something that is expected. But when it's a partner, and obviously I saw this somewhat with my mum when it happened and things, it's not something you ever really want to happen until the very, very end. It's kind of like with your, not to compare it to dogs, but it's like with your dogs. It's like when you've got two people bonded, what you kind of want is, and Megan's grandparents, this happened to, one of them passes away within a year, the other one passes away. And it's kind of a nice, I don't know if I necessarily believe in the soul or anything like that, but I believe that not things happen for a reason, but you get a connection. There's some sort. We're all made from the same matter. At the end of the day, we're all stardust. Experimental messes of stardust, but we are all made of the same matter. And when we die, I believe we become one with the universe again, and we just become the energy around us. And I think that when two people die together, it's that kind of universal thing of how they can be together even more. And so when you lose someone and you're still here, it's one of those horrible things where it's like, death doesn't scare me. Life is scary, because life is where you have to deal with everything. Once you pass away and you've actually passed away, it is something that you've passed over the difficult part of life. You're now in the calm, you're in the resting part. So the fact that you are still continuing the podcast and still trying your best with everything is just something that I want you to know that I hugely respect about you as an individual in every facet. And I know how difficult it can be in certain aspects, not from personal experience to that degree, but I want to thank you for being open and honest with not only my listeners, but also yours and just the world about things like this, because death is something that affects all of us eventually. And I still think that society, even though we do have true crime podcasts and a lot of other things which speak about death a lot, I don't think people still cope with death in the most healthy of ways and address it in certain ways. But I think that you do. And I think that you have.
Thank you. I mean, that, what you've said, all of it has been a huge gift to me. And I when we met on social media, I loved your show, and I thought, what what a great show. I expect something to have a larger theme. And the fact that you have so many interests makes that the theme. And the people that you have on, all different walks of life experiences. That's one of the things I find fascinating about it, is like, this guy is doing something very interesting. Anyone could talk about things or with people, but you talk about a wide variety, and you are so great at researching and being compassionate to people and pulling things out of them that maybe they didn't even know they were going to talk about. But Mark was, the impetus for me doing this. He believed in me way more than I ever could myself. He's the guy who said, get your ass in there. We're going to record this. And then he would not let me stop. And we did not miss a week over 3.5, almost 4 years until he died. And that included losing his father. That included losing both of our dogs. That included him having 2 life-saving surgeries. We didn't miss a goddamn week. And he, I called him Producer Mark because it made me laugh, because it's like I could ever be his boss. But it made me giggle, like that I could say, Producer Mark, if you keep fucking up, I'm going to put that in your HR file, stuff like that, and he would laugh too, and yeah, I mean, he was my tarmac and my pilot and the guy in the tower. He was all of it, and he helped me fly. And I was just literally the big mouth bitch with the microphone. He edited and produced and recorded it. I did all the research, and that was what was so beautiful. He didn't even want to know about the cases until we recorded, because he was so thoughtful. He wanted to put himself in the seat of the listener. So I, like you, probably tend to research a lot, and I have the topics, cases down to minutia, and I plow forward. And maybe I plow forward, quickly, assuming everyone knows what I know. So Mark would be like, well, wait a minute, what about this? And I'd be like, thank you for asking that question. I can clarify that. So he, I would basically say the person's name is, Mary Smith, and this is what happened. And he would be like, okay, don't tell me anymore. And I loved that he did that. And yet he was recording it and engineering it and listening, but also listening to me and being mindful of the case. There were only a couple of times in over 200 episodes where he would say, well, wait, what about this? And I'd be like, I'm getting to that. Can you shut up and let me get there? And he'd be like, yeah, sorry. Most of the time, his questions were so legitimate and perfect and helpful, and it was just seamless. And I wasn't sure how we would work together, because he was a little bit of a type A personality, and I'm a little bit of I'm sure you can probably tell that I'm a little bit of a type A personality. But I was like, if we're going to do this, I want to do this. And I don't want, I didn't want a co-host. I didn't want a partner. I wanted Mark, and he was so perfect at being Mark. He was so perfect for me for being Mark. And he, understood that I'm extremely thin-skinned and overly sensitive. Everyone thinks I'm like a big brash bitch, which I guess I am, but I'm also very overly sensitive and thin-skinned. He would, not coddle me, but he would understand. I don't know how many times we would be, recording, and I would start crying. And I got to where I'd be like, cut it out, cut this out right now. And for a while he did. And he would come back after editing it, and it would just sound like I'd suddenly gotten a cold or an allergic reaction. And he finally, after about a year, said, I'm not doing it anymore. It's authentic and it's who you are. Now I'm going to cry. That's kind of meta, right? Crying about crying. But yeah, he wouldn't cut it out after a while, because he said, that's who you are. And I thought, nobody wants to hear that shit. It's not professional to cry. But you know what? It's fucking difficult topics. Mm-hmm. Talking about someone's life and death, sometimes it deserves your tears. And it's not like I can stop it. As you can see, it's not like I can stop it. I'd like to think I'd have better control, but I don't. I can't explain what makes me cry or when I'm going to cry. But one of my favorite memories is interviewing one of my favorite detectives who, when we talked about that sort of commitment to the job, could have retired years ago and will not retire until this extremely complicated, layered double homicide of 2 senior citizens until that's solved. And he's that guy. He's literally kind of an angel on earth. And we were discussing the case at one point, which, by the way, has gotten some viable tips to help the case. It still isn't solved, but of all the cases I've covered, I'm so grateful that one's gotten some solid stuff. And we were talking, and then I back away from the mic, and Mark and I were in separate rooms. He was in his room engineering, and I was in the podcast room talking. So we can't see each other, but he knew me inside and out. And I backed away from the mic, and the officer said, Mark, I've lost Melissa. And Mark goes, no, you didn't. She's crying. And he was like, oh, okay. So, I took some time to pull myself together. And after we stopped recording, he goes, listen, I just want you to know, I don't care who you talk to and what law enforcement agency, if they tell you they don't cry, they're lying. He said, there are many days that I cry. He said, I typically do it in the dark in my office in my house, but I definitely do it. And I was like, yeah, I can't imagine. When you mention like children, I would, that seems to be the thing that bothers people in law enforcement the most, are the death of children. A lot of times because like a pet, you can't imagine anything that they've done to deserve. No one deserves to be murdered. Even unless it's self-defense. If they're trying to murder you, then fucking have at it. But you can't, no one deserves to die. There's not a crime that's punishable by death. You can't be the judge and jury altogether. But yeah, the children crimes seem to be the ones that bother law enforcement the most. And I get it. I don't know that I would ever be able to process that and go on. And I've had a lot of detectives say, you should have been a detective. And I'm like, no, I should not. No, I could never do what you do. I would just be the one crying all the time. I'd be called the crying detective. I would just be the one with boxes of tissues, at every crime scene. So it's, Mark was magnificent, and I'm grateful to you for listening to the episode I entitled The Apology, because I was struggling so hard to get back to recording. I didn't know how long it might take. I know it's what Mark would want. I was just struggling so hard. I'm terrible with technology. I barely have any idea, like how we're talking right now. I'm like, imagine your grandma, like I still have an abacus. Like I don't have a calculator. I use like an abacus and I put beads on one side or the other. I'm just terrible at technology. I really am terrible at it, but that's okay. I have other gifts. But Mark, oh, sorry, that's my ice maker. I don't know if you can hear that. Mark got me an ice maker for my birthday because the one in the refrigerator didn't make enough ice. And I like a lot of ice, except I hate these ice cubes because they're shaped like little penises and I call them dick ice. So anyway, feel free to cut that part out. Anyway, Mark was so good with me, for me. He was just fantastic. And I felt like I wasn't going to be able to do this without him. And I've had people step up. You, the Star Wars fan, obviously are happy that my friend Angelique, who is a character in the Clone Wars, she's a beautiful voiceover artist. She's helping me, and I have a sweet, wonderful young man who's editing. So the schedule I'm hoping to do now is 2 full episodes a month, every other week. And then on the bye weeks, I'm hoping to do what I call a murder-tizer. I don't care if that sounds rude. It's not. It's an appetizer of murder. It's a case update or, something that isn't big enough information for a full episode. But so I do updates, and I'm trying to do those myself and have a sweet young man edit them for me. But this is a whole new world for me. I was just allowed to research my ass off and show up when we were going to record, and then Mark made the magic happen. That's what I call it. So I really appreciate you listening to that. And as far as did I need to apologize? People have said you did not need to apologize, but I felt like I did. So that's why I called it that.
When it's however you deal with it, and it's, there's no right way to deal with grief and the death of a loved one, especially when it's sudden. With my family, my dad died of cancer, so I watched him slowly become ill and then go. Whereas my uncle, who became sort of the patriarch of the family, once the wounds of the family started to heal after about a year or so, he died suddenly of a heart thing.
Oh my
He
gosh.
felt ill. He just went, they thought it was like the flu. He went to the doctors. They said, look, we'll put you under. We'll take a look. They opened him up. And he just never woke up again because his heart was so diseased.
Oh my gosh.
So we've had both elements.
Both.
And
right.
both are equally awful in different ways. You know, with the slow passing, you get the closure of saying goodbye. Like the last thing I ever said to my dad was I loved him, and that was the last thing he ever said to me. And that was the morning before he passed. And but you've got the memories of them slowly not being who you remember them to be, and that can taint some of your memories somewhat. But then the flip side is when a person passes away suddenly, you don't get the closure of saying goodbye, but you get at least the somewhat comfort that the only memories you've got of them is them at their, in air quotes, peak. And it's never, there's no better way, because I've spoken to people about it in general, like what would I prefer? And it's like neither. There's horrible parts about both. I don't want to be able to choose either. But when it comes to losing someone, you know, especially with you and Mark, is like this may sound somewhat cheesy, but it is true, is that he is now a part of you. You are now everything that is and was Mark still exists. It's just in a different facet, you know. And the fact that the podcast is a huge portion of his legacy is important, but it's also cathartic, I think, for you in a lot of ways. And it can be helpful of your own coping mechanism. And for me as an individual, whenever I go through horrible stuff or dark things like the podcast or things like keeping myself busy is often something that stops me just being in a room by myself in just physical and metaphorical darkness. I could just sit there and stew on the dark thoughts of life forever. But having this little thing that I know that other people enjoy, it gives me that push to be like, this isn't just for me, this is also for others. And then when I do it, I realize it is also for me. And I think that you and your podcast, however going forward you do it, is going to be beneficial for you and also your listeners. And a lot of people need to know that it's okay to stop. It's okay to grieve, but it's also okay to try and continue and try and move forward however you can. And I think it's very important for people to learn this thing. And, you know, there's never anything that can make it worth it. I always try and think of it as a silver lining. You know, me being who I am now, I wouldn't have the podcast if my dad hadn't died, because there's certain events that happened. I wouldn't be with Megan if my dad hadn't died. There's so many things that I wouldn't be me if my dad hadn't died. You know, when my dad got ill, he did a charity gig, because he used to be in a band and stuff quite a lot when he was younger. He did a charity gig that he played with a neck brace on and a crutch 2 months before he died. It was on my birthday actually, and he sung a full gig with his old band and stuff, and he did it for charity. All the money went to that. And because of that gig, one of Mum's old friends from school came, and her daughter, who was around my age, came, and I ended up dating her for 1.5 years. And because of those events, I then dated the person afterwards. And then because of those events, I ended up dating Megan. So in a literal direct way, because of my dad passing away, I met Megan. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that makes it worth it, but it's the ripple effect of silver linings, which is just like, at least it's not like he went and I haven't got anything from that. You know, I'm a much more rounded person. I'm better from that experience. It's the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it's the best thing that's ever happened to my character. And so many elements of my life wouldn't be the same without that. And although obviously it's a different dynamic, father to son, to, you know, you and Mark, you know, sort of life partners and things. And this is still incredibly raw and incredibly fresh. But at least the silver lining in this instance is that at the barest minimum of his legacy is the podcast and the lessons that you've got. You know, the parts of him are still in you. And it's just something quite... It's hard to say, but it is also true. It's the beauty of it. It's shit. Really shit. But the beauty of it is you've at least got that thing not only inside of you, but also out there for the world. And I think that's quite a beautiful thing.
You, young man, are an amazing soul, whether you believe in souls or not. So I also feel like the ripple effect of silver linings could be the title of your autobiography. I'm just saying. I think that's That's a beautiful phrase, the ripple effect of silver linings. And that is how, again, I just wish you could have met Mark. That is how Mark described the pain caused by the loss of someone, whether it's a homicide or whatever, the ripple effect. You put a small stone in the water, and it seems like a small stone, but it continues on for a while. So I think the ripple effect of silver linings is a beautiful phrase. You should take that. But it's odd to me that you don't believe in God, but you are one of the more spiritual people I've ever spoken to. And I do feel that Mark is, so the way I view it is through the ears of an audiophile. And I love radio, right? So I can't fucking tell you how radio works. All I can tell you is I turn it to a certain whatever, and there's that channel. And it's in the air. It's the energy in the air. So the fact that you think that our energy remains, or we become, as you say, stardust or back into the cosmos, is an incredibly beautiful thing. I talk to Mark every day. In a few days, it'll be 6 months since he passed. Talk to him every fucking day, like he's still here. He just can't answer me back that I'm aware of. But I talk to him every day. I tell him good morning. I tell him good night. I talk to myself. I'm in a big house by myself and my bitch ass dog, but she can't answer me either, except for when she barks. But I talk to him. I'm like, I'm talking to myself again, Mark. I guess I'm just going to be chatty Cathy, even if I'm by myself. But I do feel like he's with me. I feel like he's with me every day. So
he is.
Yeah, I really do like to believe that. It doesn't matter to me what someone believes, as far as a dogma or a religion, but, I do believe he's with me. And I know that's what he believed too. In fact, it's one of the, when I told you we weren't each other's types, I know I can say this and you won't be offended. After we re-met after meeting the first time, and I was like, he's way too nice for me. I'm going to run over him with a lawnmower. It'll be bad. So I meet him 3 years later, and by then he has grown a long ponytail and he looks a little bit more badass. And, we end up, what I think, because he's going to be on tour on the road, I think we're going to just be fuck buddies. I was like, he's fun in bed, but he's way too nice. He has mommy issues. We're never going to have a relationship, but he's fun in bed. And when he's here in the same city, we'll have a great time. And when he's on the road, if he finds somebody, no harm, no foul, have a great whatever. And we were at a bed and breakfast in Palm Springs one night. And we were laughing. We were sitting in bed laughing about something. I was like, oh, I wish my mom could have met you. She would have loved you. And he goes, oh, I talk to your mom all the time. And I'm like, oh, fuck, he's crazy. He talks to dead people. This is terrible. I'm like, really? What do you and my mom talk about? And he goes, I just ask her to be the best man I can be for you. I'm like, how do I not marry that guy? Right? So 4 months later, because he had absolutely zero game. He was like, well, I want to marry you, right? And I'm like, well, I did not know until just now. So thank you. I'm glad to know that. Is that your way of proposing? So yeah, I mean he had zero game. He was terrible, but he was also perfect. He was perfect for me. That's what somebody said. You were two unicorns who were perfect for each other. You weren't perfect, but you were perfect for each other. And I think that's a pretty good description of us. So I am very grateful to you for listening to the podcast, and for you. I said you could ask me anything, and he is a huge part of my life and a huge part of the podcast. I will tell you, I'm having a little difficulty listening to old episodes, and people are like, oh, I listened to his albums, and I'm so happy to hear his voice. And I'm like, yeah, I can't right now. I know there'll be a time when I can, but you're right. I do have an incredible legacy of over 200 episodes with him, and he had 5 albums he recorded. And so, yeah, I do have an amazing legacy of his voice, and his heart and soul came out in everything he did. So I'm a very blessed person in that way.
Would you mind sharing what his artistic pseudonym is? Or if not, that's fine.
No, it's totally. He was Mark Humphreys. He has a website. We're kind of with the other artists on the label. He started a label probably 30 years ago as a vanity. And then, like you, half of his brain is, the technical legal shit, and the other half is an artist. And I'm getting theories now about how you are the way Mark was the way he was. So he was one of the only people I know that his right and left brains were very developed. He was the legal eagle who got the details all right, and he was a complete and utter artistic soul. So you're a rare bird, like he was a very rare bird. But it's Trough Records, TROUGH.com, and Trough Records is a label, but Trough.com and TroughRecords.com were him, and there are 11 other artists, like I said, on the label, and we're all trying to work together. They're being very gentle with the widow, trying to keep the label going, because everyone has their own albums. And he wouldn't call it a record label, he would call it a collective, because every artist owns their own, content. He would just use his influence to send out their stuff to, radio stations or, program directors, whatever, booking people who book gigs. So yeah, I mean, he loved doing that. He was, more than anything, I think he was a support system for more people than I even could imagine. I thought he was like my rock. I think he was a rock to a whole lot of other people too.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. And thinking about sort of how your dynamic is, you mentioned about your love of radio, and when I listen to your show, I think of radio. I think of you being air quotes the face, but he is producer Mark. He's behind the scenes, but still very much a present character. And I think your life now has shifted to mirror that, in a sense where he is no longer as much of a front-facing figure in your life. He has now taken more of the producer role to his life and his death, helping you go forward.
Wow. That's an incredibly beautiful thing. That's a beautiful way to look at it, Mike. That's a gift you just gave me. I had someone say, I think that Mark had other work to do. I think he and I was like, oh, I don't like that. Why can't he still work here? But maybe he is producing from behind the scenes. He's still producing from behind the scenes because, he totally, let me fly. He let me fly, and I did, and I knew I could because he was there. Yeah. So I'm going to look at it that way. Thank you for that. That's a beautiful gift you just gave me. Thank you.
It's okay. It's one of those things. Yeah, losing anyone is always shit. It's no other way of putting it. And nothing can prepare you for it.
No, and you have had both, and I've had both. I had a time knowing my mom was going to pass, and no time knowing Mark was going to pass. And the only way I can get through Mark is knowing I got through my mom. Because when she passed, I thought she was my best friend, and I thought, well, I don't know how I'm going to live through this one, and I did. And I met, Mark years later, and I'm sometimes I still think I don't know how I'm going to get through this one, but I am, Yeah.
I mean, this is now going to sound like an angsty teenage thing to say, but it's something I've always stuck to. Okay. And it's to do with a sensitive subject, which is suicide, which is my argument against, I know it's not this simple. Okay. To clarify, I've had friends who've had attempts and things and have had issues with it and stuff. But my main thing, and I've said this to friends of mine who have got mental health issues, and one of my closest friends who suffer with it said this really helped them. And it was just that, bluntly, you're going to die anyway. Why shorten it? You're going to be reunited with Mark. You're going to be reunited with your mum in whether or not it's a conscious fashion that we are in now, the way we are communicating, or whether it's not just a universal energy hug. Either way, you're going to be reunited at some point. So although it's hard and it's difficult, you're going to be there eventually. So between now and that point, you might as well just do other stuff or do things that can kind of help. It's one of those things. I'm like, I'm not trying to, devalue people's struggles or anything. But for me personally, I would say, I know it's not always easy to say this and it might come across insensitive, but I would never kill myself because I'm going to die anyway. And whatever happens to me, it's like, if even at my lowest points I've had, it's going to happen. So it's like, I can't escape it. I might walk out the middle of the road tomorrow and be hit by a bus. Who knows? So I might as well just, even at its worst points, there's always moments. Like life is about moments. It's not about, big grandeur things. It's not about, earning $1 billion and being the top of a CEO or anything like that. It's not about having the biggest podcast in the world. It's about when you are on your deathbed or when your consciousness transcends and becomes one with the universe, the moments that you remember is who you are. And it's the moments that make you smile, the moments that make you sad, everything that makes you you are the moments, not everything else. And that's all life is about. And so now you've had the moments with Mark that have got you to this point, and now you have to find new moments with his help to get you to the finish line, in a sense.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's incredibly beautiful. That's an incredibly beautiful way to look at it. And I know, Mark would agree with you completely. He's wherever he is, probably shaking his head furiously. I think that's a great way to look at it. I mean, a guy who talks to my dead mother he's never met and says, "Help me be the best man I can be for her." I mean, yeah, he's got a bigger view of things. He was, born and raised Catholic, and he'd call himself a recovering Catholic. And, he was one of the more he didn't have a religion when I met him, but he was one of the more spiritual human beings I've ever met. And I absolutely think you are too, whether a spiritual person doesn't necessarily
I went to a Catholic primary school. So I almost became Catholic, and then I got told off for asking too many questions, and I was like,
there you go.
This religion isn't for me. And
he was 12. He was 12 when the priest came to his house, and finally, he was, it sounds like you, smart, and was, too questioning. And the priest finally said, "Look, your mom and dad, it makes them happy. Can you just pretend for a while?" And he's like, "Oh, okay." So he just didn't ask questions of them. And then when he got to be 18 and left the house, he's like, "Bye, Catholicism, bye."
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I'm telling you, I wish, I know he's aware of us talking, but I wish he could have met you in the flesh, because I know he would have probably wanted to adopt you. So
yeah, there's a lot of similarities, but in maybe the silver lining of me not speaking with you before Mark's passing was this kind of conversation, is the closure.
Right.
And this conversation has more of an impact to us and the listeners, as well as the most amount of benefit being now, although it would have been potentially maybe not nicer, but maybe easier if it was a year ago. It's probably the most useful and probably the most important for it to have happened now. And
I'm a big believer. Everything happens when it's supposed to, and a nicer conversation. Neither of us want to take the nice path. You and I think both get out our shovels and dig up the dirty shit path.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't matter what anyone's religious views are. Like I used to be, I did believe in God, and then I was quite a militant atheist for, years. I would argue with people online, and I'd get angry about people with religion because I'd only focus on the negative elements of religion, because obviously religion can cause a lot of pain, even though it can cause a lot of niceties. But I've become more spiritual as I've got older, and it's like I don't believe in a God, because I don't believe in the hierarchy of life there being a deity at the top. I believe life is just a circle. It's just, all life, the universe is always expanding, and then it will retract, and it will just do that infinitely.
Beautiful.
My best view of life is that of a forest, is that, the trees grow, and then, winter comes around, the leaves die off, and then those dying leaves become the ground and the mulch for all of the other insects to eat. And then because of that, and it's just this cycle, and it's, everything we're taught when we're kids. And so for me, the cycle of life is just energy is never destroyed, it's only ever transferred. So it's just
changes, right?
Yeah, and it's just a loop of that, and you scale up from microorganisms and things from things in our gut biome, and all over our skin and stuff, and you zoom out, and Earth is just us. It's just a super organism with that, and you zoom out, and that's what galaxies are, and etc., etc. So it's just, for me, the only reason I don't believe in a religion is because I don't want a book to tell me what rules are. I'm going to make that mind up myself. But also, I just think energy. We're just we're beings of light. It's just when we change from this form, the physical form, we become one with the universe, which is a different kind of form. And that's the only reason that I'm not a religious person, but I am spiritual in the sense of just tranquility and peace is just at the end of everyone's journey, and you get there for a variety of methods.
Oh, I love that. That's an incredibly beautiful way to look at it. Yeah, I love that. And when you'd mentioned friends with mental health issues and suicide, have you ever seen the documentary called The Bridge?
No, I haven't. I'll make a note of it.
There are 30 or so people who have survived a jump from the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco.
Was this about
and
the
they
guy?
did a document.
Is this about the guy who
Pardon?
speaks to? Is this about the guy who has talked them down from it, or is that something else? Sorry to interrupt.
No,
Okay,
it's
sorry. Please
it's
continue.
speaking to people who have it's people who've survived the jump,
Oh,
because most people don't. And every single one of them said, the second I did it, I knew I made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely do you get an opportunity to speak to someone who's attempted to take their own life because they thought something was so dire that you get to talk to them and say, did you reevaluate? And it's like, yeah, I knew I made a mistake the second I did it. And that's the thing. Everything changes. I used to teach yoga until the pandemic. So I practiced yoga for 22 years and taught yoga for 16 years. And the only thing we have is change. The only permanent thing is change. So yeah, I love the way you look at it. We're all energy. And in my simplistic way, we're all, different stations on the radio dial. Sometimes you're picking up country music. Sometimes you're picking up death metal, whatever you dial into. So yeah, that's, we're all just energy, and all we have. Even the good things are going to change. And here's the thing, the bad things are going to change too. And to make a decision on something that's bad today, it could very easily be good tomorrow.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I will say there's. We'll start to wrap up here. But I will say there's a couple of just quick things, which is with one thing I've just thought of is the concept of, when a thought comes into your mind and you don't know where it came from, and it's just
Sure.
imagination. Who's to say that isn't just the universe telling you something? Who's to say this isn't just something else? So when you're, as an example for yourself, and I could use this for like my dad as well, because he was a performer and things. So maybe when you have had the idea of maybe I should release the apology, or maybe I should continue the podcast and something, whatever that thought was, that could be the energy of Mark just whispering into sort of the back of your mind, and it filtering through to be what that is. It's, someone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sure your dad is like thrilled to death at genuine Chit-Chat and at the ripple effect of the silver lining. I know he is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't talk to dead people or anything, but I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
I know your dad's super proud.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one hopes, and I would think he would be. He was alive when I made music videos for bands, and one of the bands, it was like a big band I loved called 6am, and the singer saw it, and that was one of his like proudest moments. So I know that he would be very proud of this. But
absolutely,
it's been delightful speaking with you, Melissa. Obviously the subject matter hasn't been cheery necessarily, but it's still important for both of us and also any of the listeners just to know that death is not always the end. It's just a new chapter. It's a conversion, however one wants to view it. It's just things are still always affecting other things. And I want to thank you for your honesty and your openness, are willing to speak with me about all of these things. And I just want to ask, so any final thoughts you want to say to people before we sort of, you plug your show? I'll put things in the show notes anyway, but sort of final thoughts and things before we wrap up.
Well, number one, people should know, I don't know if you post videos, but that you're much more gorgeous than I thought. And number two, you're a lot younger than I thought, because you have the maturity of someone much older, but you're basically a child, but you are a brilliant child. And shows like this are important because, like true crime, if you've been a victim of something, or if your life has been touched by something, you can figure out that other people have gone through it and they've survived. And shows like this are important because you talk to people of all different, lives and careers and experiences, and then other people can hear it and go, oh, you know what? I'm not alone. Someone else has had the same experience I have. I think it's, after Mark passed away, I became an even bigger consumer of podcasts. It was because I was alone, honestly. I would listen all the time to fun podcasts. Some of them even were so honest they made me cry. But you have no idea how important your content is until somebody reminds you, hey, what you're doing is great work. So thank you for that.
No problem at all. So final thing is, where can people find you? I'll put them in the show notes, but just so you can say it out loud for any of those audio files that prefer it.
I will. You can find me any place that you stream podcasts. Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher. I'm so delighted. I don't know why, but we've gotten a huge influx of listeners from India, on Ghana. I mean, it's like, I guess Ghana is kind of the Indian version of Apple.
Yeah.
It's huge. God bless you, India. I don't get it, but God bless you for listening in large numbers. So here's the exciting thing, not for anyone else, but for me. I had the domain name justthetipsters.com for 4 fucking years and did nothing with it. But Mark had set up an appointment with a web designer before he passed away, and I kept the appointment. So fingers crossed, the new website's supposed to launch at the end of March of 2022 here, just like in the next couple weeks. So there'll be a website, justthetipsters.com. You can find me on Facebook, the Just the Tipsters Facebook page. I'm going to forget my other, because you and I have talked about how much I hate Twitter and find it screaming into the void. I think it's like Just the Tips or JT Tipsters Pod. And then Instagram is JT Tips. I don't even fucking know. I'm terrible.
It'll be in the description. If you type in Just the Tipsters,
thanks.
And I'll tag you in this episode when I release a snippet and stuff. But it's been, when I end the call, we will still be talking when I stop recording, just to clarify, because I don't really think I'm going to just hang up. Bye. But it has been delightful speaking with you, Melissa, and you're always welcome on the show. And it's just thank you for being on my show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being you, and it's been a joy for me.